A perspective on block weapons. Okay, so I notice a few comments who are still underplaying how useful block weapons are, and I think this post does a great job of breaking it down. And I'm also curious of how close block weapons are to becoming the meta. And I can't imagine it's going to happen with the current patch, but in the future we will be getting perk reworks, and we will be getting buffs. Hopefully the Power Fist gets a buff. And I think, fully understanding how block weapons work and their place in the melee build space right now, just understanding block weapons a little bit more can go a long way for future patches, because I do believe there will be at least one or two melee weapons that are going to get buffed. So the blocking variants will be something very sought after when it comes to the higher difficulties. Also, blocking weapons are just super fun. I gotta be honest, they're very, very fun. There's definitely some changes I would like to see, so hopefully this post does a good job of breaking down where block weapons stand currently in the meta, and other, useful information about block weapons. I kind of want to see what they're cooking here, so yeah, let's get into it. So, it's been some weeks since we got the block mechanic rework, and we've all had some time to feel it out. I would like to share an opinion on where I think block falls in the meta at this point. It's always good to start at the conclusion. Block weapons are good, possibly even ideal choice for tactical class. Interesting. I mean, the scan, the debuff is also really good for melee, if you consider it like that. That's interesting. They are unpickable for bulwark. I'm going to have to agree with this. I just think the controls, there's too much crossover, and sometimes you'll go for a block as bulwark and you'll pull out the shield, which can't do the real block mechanic. So, I don't know, it just feels very janky. And assault, I'm gonna have to disagree there. I know a lot of people like assault for the gun strike build it can pull off, but relying on gun strikes against chaos can kind of be a pain. Even though they have unblockable attacks that you can, perfect dodge and get the gun strike. I'm gonna have to disagree on this. Block weapons are perfect for assault if you know how to time your jump pack ground slams, and you can take things out quick enough. I think blocking weapons are perfect for assault. So far I've only ran Reliquary on Ruthless as assault, but I went through it pretty well, as it's Reliquary. There's going to be certain spots here and there that are going to be a pain to deal with, but still getting through Reliquary as assault and having the highest damage was really nice. At least, total, I guess. But regardless, I think assault and blocking weapons are perfect, especially since there's going to be maybe a Power Fist buff, some perk reworks. We will see. They are maybe equitable on, or equitable? Heck, I think, whatever. They are maybe useful on Sniper and Vanguard. Dude, I just don't know why this guy... Are you out of your mind? Like, Sniper and Vanguard both have the blocking combat knife, and I've used that recently, and that thing's pretty good. Although the block rework has improved the situation, further changes are needed. Okay, but I gotta admit, I think they're off the ball with how they are picking classes here. Like, it's an ideal choice for tactical, but it's unpickable for bulwark and assault. Hard disagree there. I mean, I agree with bulwark, but I don't agree with assault, sniper, or Vanguard. I think blocking's perfectly viable for them. I can see where sniper, with the gun strikes is probably a little bit better, but Vanguard is very, very melee efficient. In brief, the player behind this opinion. I believe that I'm of average skill level compared to relatively dedicated players. I can always clear Ruthless solo and clear Lethal comfortably with teammates. Okay, well, I gotta admit, nobody really does Ruthless solo, like, if they're just an average player. Like, that's still just, like, a pretty insane thing to do. I mean, Ruthless isn't that tough if you have maxed out weapons and stuff, but, certain operations can be a pain solo on Ruthless for sure. I max Bulwark, Vanguard, Assault, and then Tactical since I focus... Oh, well, they play Assault. Since I focused on melee ranged characters at first, parrying is and was of major focus for me. Yes, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I did parrying for most of the lifespan of the game. I tried block first on Vanguard after maxing Assault, and it didn't quite click. I tried block on Tactical, and then it really clicked. Yeah, I guess the scan was just the factor that kind of changed their opinion here. So why recommend block on tactical? Tactical Marines can effectively keep shooting in the middle of a swarm and hold back from meleeing. This means that you can afford to save up your block stacks until you hit the critical third charge. I mean, I guess it still like goes away eventually though. I don't know. I like blocking. I like doing the block and then swing. You know, you get the block, you get a little extra damage on your melee. I don't know. It's interesting. That's a fine way to look at it, I guess. The damage of fully stacked block buff against an enemy marked by scan is truly absurd. Pretty much instant execution state. In case you don't play tactical, the perk that applies Allspark mark to parried enemies also works with perfect blocks. The setup is very viable. Okay, so I guess that's their point on why they like blocking on tacticals, because of the perk that supports it. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, that's a really good synergy. I like the build. And that's definitely what I did when I first tried blocking. The damage from block stacks plus all spec scan is still good even if you don't hit all 3 stacks. Fantastic burst power. Yeah, I agree. The lack of gunstrike marks can actually be an upside for tactical. Okay, now this is an interesting perspective. Gunstrike marks are obligatory. If you try to fire your weapon while one is out, you will be forced to gunstrike. Oh, so it's like mandatory. I see what they're saying. Also, no, there's ways you can get around it, but it's kind of weird. It's doable on paddle, on console. You can definitely, it's easier to not gunstrike on paddle for whatever reason. And we're all familiar with the tragedies that follow unwisely timed gunstrikes. No parry spawn gunstrike means the tactical can keep using their weapon at all times. No gunstrikes mean better situational awareness, since you don't have to deal with the camera movements and zoom of a gunstrike. Keep better track of your teammates, have an easier time seeing that warrior coming in on her 6. I guess. Again, you can probably play around that though, like, to be honest, but okay. Every gunstrike leaves you vulnerable. Blocking means you can weather the wave without leaving yourself open, shooting and building block stacks until you can dramatically flip the situation with the massive boom burst hit. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we all know that gunstrikes are, you know, they kind of can be risky, but I mean, I guess that's a good point to make why, you know, it's not completely necessary for a tactical to do gunstrikes. I guess. I like some of the stuff they're cooking here, but then some of the stuff here, you know, I still think blocking's perfectly viable for Assault, but they did say they maxed out Assault, so, I don't know, they have a similar experience with that class than I do. But still, I think, yeah, I think blocking is perfectly viable for Assault. That's crazy that they said it's, like, it's not viable, which I disagree. I disagree. Why is block unpickable for Bulwark and Assault? Armor reinforcement. This perk is simply too good to forego. Oh, I mean, I agree that perk is very strong. I definitely agree with that. I've recently done a blocking run on Reliquary as Assault, and I followed that up with a parry gunstrike build with Assault, also doing Chaos Operations. I didn't post that video yet, so I'm going to hold my thoughts on it. But for the most part, it feels like you're waiting for the enemy to do the right attacks too much. And I just think that, you know, armor reinforcement's a good perk, but you know what else is good? Taking out enemies very fast so you can get executionable status and get your armor back that way. So, I know that obviously doesn't work against Terminus, but still, I mean, for the most part, you know, playing around fencing means you're playing around the enemy's attacks, and sometimes with Assault, I just wanted to slam, so blocking was perfect for me. So yeah, I basically switched this out with just being able to take out enemies as quick as possible, basically. As these classes must necessarily rely primarily on meleeing, building up block stacks is too unlikely. Well, look, I agree with this. Sometimes blocking can be a pain because, again, like, you do kind of have to rely on the 3 attack combos to fully prepare the blocking mechanic. The thing is, though, I also like just blocking once or twice and then just doing a charge attack or something like that for Assault. So, you know, that's the way I get around it. More damage is more damage. That's the way I look at it. Block is only worthwhile if you are reliably hitting 3 stacks. I disagree. I disagree. Just, yeah. More damage is more damage. Sorry. But yeah, obviously the Assault has a gunstrike perk for the team that's really, really strong. And if anything, that takes out majors quicker than, you know, blocking slams. But it really depends. It really depends. It's really just that simple. Melee classes are functional. are functionally unable to access the core value of blocking weapons, and armor reinforcement is broken. Wow, okay, so hyperbole. Armor reinforcement is good, but it's still a gun strike, a non-finisher gun strike perk, so it's not like entirely, it's not useful in every situation. Some enemies just get finished off by gun strikes, so it's kind of like you don't really get the full armor reinforcement perk there. And I would frankly just rather just slam a couple times on a Terminator, keep them perma-stunned, and finish off the job that way. Geez, dude, I guess I need to play blocking more, but I'm gonna have to disagree here. I think blocking is perfectly fine on Assault, and if you're aggressive enough with it, you can take out enemies quicker than, you know, they can damage your armor, basically. Especially since you can get gun strikes with the Thunderhammer Slam anyway, so you do have a way to get gun strikes and your armor back against minorists. But against majors, it's basically shoot their head a couple times and then slam down and then charge attack and they're gone. Something like that. And yes, I know, against ruthless majors, even chaos majors, if you do the same thing but with a parry and a gun strike, you're going to get them in executionable status, probably a little bit faster. But that said, you still need the gun strike there. Sometimes chaos are just crazy. They're just trying to be crazy, and they'll just throw melee attacks at you sometimes, but sometimes they don't. So, I don't know. I'd rather just, you know, open up the battle for myself and not wait for the enemy to open up the battle for me. That's the way I look at it. That said, they do have a point here. I guess, you know, blocking could use one maybe small buff. Who knows? Who knows? Vanguard and Sniper. These classes are similar benefits to Tactical, but always on a lesser scale, probably because they don't have scan. Like Tactical, these classes feasibly choose to refrain from meleeing in a swarm in order to build their block stacks. However, they're also far more likely to run dry on ammo, in which case they're obliged to melee at will. Okay, so I've been using Sniper on PC because mouse and keyboard, much more fun. The thing is, I've been low on ammo with Sniper, but actually running out of it is kind of rare. Also, yeah, like the combat knife is kind of weird against mobs, but the blocking combat knife is very, very strong. It's a very strong weapon. So, I don't know. I gotta be honest. I think Sniper and Vanguard are perfect for blocking. I've used blocking chainsword on the Vanguard recently, and it was perfectly viable. Very aggressive, and I mostly play on a Ruthless with Vanguard and Assault. I'll have to bring him back out for lethal, but when I ran blocking for my tactical, I believe it was on lethal. I'm not 100% sure, but we will see. We will see. That said, I mean, tactical is a very good blocking choice, you know. So they have good points here, but ultimately, I just disagree with the way they're trying to label Assault, Vanguard, and Sniper as, you know, non-blocking viable or blocking, whatever, you know what I mean? They can't use blocking. I definitely disagree with that. I agree with Bulwark, though. The points about the downsides of gun striking remain the same as Tactical. Perhaps a critical downside, these classes lack the Allspark on block parry perk that Tactical has, so the value of fully charged attack doesn't spike as much for them. Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. But, like, you're setting up, like, these super attacks, and it's like, sure, you can set them up, but sometimes in situations, I just want to take out enemies fast. So I don't want to sit there and wait for a combo. I'd throw a grenade or something, and I don't know. It really depends, but it's really hard to just, like, rely on one loop, because then as soon as something breaks up that loop, you're in a bad situation. Like, you get backed up into a corner. What I'd like to see change. Okay. Now, I'm down for this. I'm 100% down for this. If blocking gets any sort of changes or buffs, I think it's perfectly fine. I still think Vanguard, Sniper, Assault, they can run blocking at higher difficulties, but you know what? I think I'd need some more experience doing that as well. But I don't know. I'm just pushing back a little bit on that. But ultimately, they are making good points. It's an absolute shame that the changes to block don't make a lick of difference to Bulwark and Assault. Again, I'm gonna have to disagree. For Bulwark, that's fine because it's janky, but for Assault, no. Assault has more melee damage now, and you can build around that. The melee classes deserve to have meaningful build choices when picking their melee weapons. It's backwards that ranged characters are functionally more diverse in their options. I don't know. That's fair, but like, again, the way I look at Assault is like there's the gun strike build and there's a melee build when it comes to lethal. And the range, I don't know. I think Vanguard also has some good melee, options, so I don't know. Resolving this is going to require additional reworks of the block mechanic, reworks of the perk trees, or both. These reworks will have to target at least one of the following. Okay, well, we're already getting perk reworks, so I'm not too sure the block mechanic needs a complete rework. That's kind of, like, excessive, I think. Additional ways to gain armor, or set up situations to regain armor. Armor regen is non-negotiable for melee classes. Yeah. But guess what? You can get your armor back when you execute enemies. You can get your armor back when you slam your hammer and gun strike smaller enemies. I agree, but I think there's more options to that. Like, people really just forget, like, you can execute people and get your armor back. So just kill things. Like, come on. What? Okay, I get it. Purely relying on armor, getting your armor back through blocking probably isn't the best way. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But I choose to get my armor back by smashing, basically. Getting max block charges more easily. Melee characters need to melee often. Meleeing means burning the charges. Block only gives armor on max charges. Refer to the previous point. So yeah, they would want that changed, I guess. I don't know. That's fair. I think, to be completely honest, I definitely think you should be getting armor on maybe the second block or something. In general, I'd like to see more class perks that interact with blocking, as well as more weapon perks that care about blocks and parries. Okay, I mean, yeah, there's a possibility we get some buffs there, something like that. Yeah, I mean, dude, as far as perk reworks, I think I'm just going to kind of, just agree, because we're getting perk reworks regardless, and yeah, I think certain perks need a rework, and yeah, it would be nice if we saw more blocking perks. So yeah, ultimately I agree, but I think they're kind of, they're not really keeping in mind how powerful blocking can be in the hands of a good assault, where you're just smashing things left and right, you're using your gun strikes on minorous enemies, and, you can keep your armor up for sure. But yeah, I agree that the armor regain with blocking can kind of be a little bit slow. I agree with that. A hopeful closing. I'm optimistic about where the devs will take this. Although I don't always agree with their choices and priorities, it is very clear that they are paying attention. The block rework was, without a doubt, an improvement. Oh, well, that's nice to see. I'm very happy that they've repeatedly spoken about their intentions to rebalance both class and weapon perks. Yeah, so we could see some buffs. It is crazy how many people, when blocking first released, it is crazy how many people legitimately thought that it was a step backwards for melee classes. Like, some people are just super pessimistic, and there's nothing you can do about that. So, honestly, those type of points, it's just, there's nothing to really talk about. It's like, dude, obviously blocking was an improvement. There's really no reason to, get mad about them adding it. You know what I mean? The current design of perks often makes me feel like they didn't understand the game they've created to an embarrassing degree. But since they're clearly watching, playing, and learning like we've all been, I can only believe that the game will improve. I mean, there's one or two perks that are a bit weird for sure. Mainly the Vanguard perk, when everyone gets a little bit of a health boost from, I think, killing Extremis or Terminus. It's a really, really specific perk. So that was a lot to read through, and I know it may have been a bit repetitive, so thanks for sticking with me. If you haven't tried block weapons yet, please consider it. Okay, but you can't just say that it's unviable for 4 classes, which 3 of those classes I think are perfectly viable. If you've been able to make them work with Bulwark, Vanguard on Ruthless or Lethal, tell me how you do it. Okay, I'll say it again. You smash things. You use the heavy bolt pistol, soften up some majors, and then you smash them. That's how you get your armor back. You smash things. Well, obviously, charge attacks on minorous enemies to get the gun strike is also a good loop in between shooting majorous heads and smashing them. That is how I do it. But yes, I would like to run a lethal chaos mission with assault to fully understand my theory here. But I have been able to punch up with blocking weapons for quite a bit. And what I mean by punch up is I have a weaker assault, maybe a level 12 assault with a blocking Thunderhammer. I was able to run that on Ruthless. And I've been running it on Ruthless for quite a bit without any problems. And I've recently put out a video, Ruthless Chaos Mission with assault level 20-ish? Or I ended level 20. Either way, I'm close to level 25, so I will be jumping on Lethal with the blocking Thunderhammer very soon. And yes, I have a Relic Thunderhammer now, so that's nice. Each path must be chosen with care, lest disaster swallow us whole. Varro Tigerius? Chief Librarian of the Ultramarines. Oh, wow. Chief Librarian. I wonder if he has a figure. Okay, very cool quote. Very good post. I think it was a good post. They clearly know a lot about blocking, more than 99% of the people, I guess. Because a lot of the comments I get on blocking is just really weird. Now, that said, I do get good comments about blocking. I do see a lot of people trying it out and enjoying it. I just think it's a very, very nice melee mechanic, for sure. Yeah, if their issues are practically just the armor regen, then yeah, maybe get an armor back for the second block and an armor back for the third block, rather than getting 2 armors on the third block. So basically, you get the 1 block, you get a little bit of damage. You get the second block, you get armor, a little bit of damage. You get the third block, you get the second armor, and peak damage. So, I don't know. I think each stage of blocking has something unique, whereas the second stage is just getting armor back very, much sooner than the third block. So, I don't know. Fair enough. Fair enough. I do think blocking, at the very least, since Gunstrike kind of is balanced around higher difficulties, at the very least, I think blocking should get a little bit of a buff on lethal, like the same way Gunstrikes are a little bit buffed on lethal. So, I don't know. That's the only thing I'd like to see changed. Okay, let's get into some responses. Obviously, this was a longer post, but it's blocking weapon talk. I really enjoy discussing the dynamics of blocking weapons, because I think it's a very cool mechanic, and I think more people should try it out. But I do think there's a lot of people trying it out. I just think there's a large portion of players who haven't tried it out, who also don't like it. So, I don't know. I think this post is a good post to get people, fully on board with how to understand this mechanic. Even though this guy was a little bit negative, basically saying the melee classes weren't able to use blocking. I disagree with that. Honestly, spot on with all your points. I think one easy buff they could do right now is to reduce the max adrenaline stack from 3 to 2. Okay, I mean, it would make block go from decent to good in its current state. Look, okay. Yeah. I ultimately agree with the way they said that. Decent to good is interesting. I think blocking is good, but there's a pretty large skill ceiling with blocking, because you have to learn the combos and, learn what, when to fully go in for the 3 block or the 2 block, you know what I mean? That said, if blocking went from 3 to 2, I think that makes it meta. I think that would make it meta if the max adrenaline stacks went from 3 to 2. I think blocking would be meta for sure. I think attacking with 1 adrenaline stack should also do AoE damage, but in a similar radius compared to a full charge. Okay, yeah, if both those changes went through, blocking would become meta for sure. I think honestly that's a fine change. It's not going to break too much, but ultimately I just think we should just get an armor back for the second block. I think that would be more than enough. That said, we might get some perks that buff melee. Who knows? I completely disagree. I find block to be most useful on assault. Yay! Somebody, okay, most useful, I'm not sure. I do think the scan perk with blocking is very strong when it comes to blocking. But that said, tactical does not have the thunder hammer, so the assault has the thunder hammer. We have the 13 damage melee swings, and then also more damage with charge, and then more damage with blocking, and then more damage with perks. I think assault is in a good spot when it comes to blocking weapons. Sorry. While tactical should prefer fencing due to Osbach parry and focusing on shooting, block hammer one-hits majors via jump smash, and dodging is much easier on assault. So, the block hammer one-shotting majors. I need to try this on lethal. I did recently. The last video I put out with my blocking Thunderhammer, that was Artificer on Ruthless, and it was not one-shotting majors. I have a theory that obviously the Relic version would be doing this, but I have yet to try it out. I leveled up my Thunderhammer, got it to Relic, and I have not went back to try it out yet. So I will likely be doing that today. I'm actually looking forward to it. I really, really enjoy slamming down that Thunderhammer, man. But I'm glad somebody else pointed this out. I think I think Assault and the blocking Thunderhammer is exactly what you need to take out enemies fast enough to get your armor back with executions. You definitely need to do the slam on a few times against the minor enemies to trigger gun strikes. That's just an alternative way to get your armor back as well. So, I don't know. I agree. I'm going to have to agree that Assault is blocking viable. I don't know why the poster said that, but whatever. I'm glad to see another comment agree with me, though. Block weapons have a different playstyle than parry weapons, and you have to change the perks playstyle to fit it. Offense is your biggest defense, so take as much damage perks and contested health perks as you can. Dodge is still your main defense. You can't parry out of a tight spot. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. But yes, that's exactly what I say, is just use the blocking weapons in a sense of just taking things out very fast, and then you won't have to worry about survivability too much. An assault with the right build one-shots nearly everything under the sky. Ravager, 3 stacks, jump equals instant kill. Wow, okay, that's gonna take a lot. Wait, Ravengers? I mean, no, they swing a lot. Those are definitely enemies that you could probably get full max stacks on. You can also face tank sniper shots from the air with max health for no damage, because when you land, it is an execute. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my theory, but yeah, that's a very specific situation. I mean, honestly, I would never, I would never try to face tank sniper shots, but I mean, that's true. What he's saying here is true. The Vanguard chain sword plus inbuilt contest health regen means you can face tank a lot. I have not tried it on Bulwark, though. I think the chain sword will do well with it. No, they have a point with Bulwark. I just think the controls are a little janky for it. It's like sometimes you want to hold in your block so you can block other attacks, but like the blocking mechanic essentially does operate like the parry, whereas the Bulwark shield itself can, you know, if you hold down the blocking button too long, it can just overwrite all of that, and I don't know. It's definitely weird. It's definitely weird. But yeah, Vanguard, I used the Vanguard blocking chainsword, very strong, and then I also used the blocking Thunderhammer on Assault, very strong, so I will say that. And yes, I guess ultimately what I've gathered from this post is blocking is about 1 buff away from becoming meta. And I think that's good. I think it's in a good spot. We learned a lot about blocking here. There was a lot of opinions, but there was also a lot of good information here. And hopefully this post helps some of you guys who are a little bit, you know, negative on blocking. Hopefully you guys can, you know, kind of start to understand why people are enjoying it, and maybe you could try it out yourself. But yeah, there's a few people who are kind of, you know, pushed back about the idea of blocking weapons, and that's fine. Gun strikes are very strong. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with the perk reworks, to see if blocking gets any stronger. And yes, tactical is very strong with blocking. I think assault is very strong with blocking, and Vanguard's very strong with blocking. Sniper, I think, is good, because the blocking combat knife is strong. But it really depends on how you play your sniper. You know, do you play with the SMG? Do you play with the sniper? It really depends. But yeah, that was a good post. There was some good information there. I'm gonna push back with the Assault and Vanguard not being good with blocking. I think they're perfectly fine with blocking. Even Sniper, I believe, has a Majorous melee perk as well, so that would work with blocking also. Interesting though, interesting. Yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about blocking. I know we've been talking about blocking quite a bit recently, but I wanted to give this post a chance because they had some good information in it. So, I don't know. I think blocking is 1 buff away from being meta. Thanks for watching.